at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up, and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello, and welcome to the Doin' Time Show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marisa, and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. First up on the show, we're going to be speaking with Brett Collins from Justice Action, and Brett has been a wonderful contributor on our show for many years. He's actually from Justice Action and has spoken about lots and lots of campaigns that Justice Action is working on at the moment and in the past. And today we're going to be speaking about the fact that newspapers will be hopefully going into Victorian prisons and also South Australian prisons, and giving just a bit of a general update on that. And we'll also speak about some of the issues surrounding mental health as well, and looking at incarceration of that arena. And then after that, we'll be speaking with Ian from the Refugee Action Coalition in New South Wales. And I was speaking to Ian this morning off air about the fact that suicides have definitely increased on Manus Island. And indeed, we're going to be talking about that and looking at the plight of asylum seekers and refugees and how the recent election results may affect that. So we're coming up now is Brett Collins. Hello, Brett. Welcome.
Yes, hello, Marisa.
It's lovely to have you back again.
Yes, good on you. Lovely to speak with you guys.
Absolutely. So, Brett, I'm wondering if you could just talk a bit about what's been going on at Justice Action and talk about the newspapers and the mental health issues as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, probably the newspaper should be centrepiece because it is, after all, the only paper going to everybody inside prisons nationally and into the psychiatric hospital. So we've actually got 44,000 people, give or take 100 or so throughout all the prison systems. And we have we estimate about 6,000 people locked up into the psychiatric hospitals in each of the states and territories. So what we have, for example, in Victoria, we were actually able to send into every person inside a Victorian prison received a copy of the newspaper to distribute it. So every newspaper, Barwon, every prison, Barwon, Port Phillip, they're all, a number of them, I think they're 19, or I'm not quite sure the numbers, but that's in the database. And we sent, then after getting agreement from the Victorian Commissioner for Prisons, sent then a letter to every prison with a package of 600, for example, to the Port Phillip or whatever it was. The numbers in that particular jail were sent to each of the managers of the jails to be distributed to every prisoner. And each of them has a whole range of stuff. And it's only 4 pages, but it's the only sheet to go in. And so it has on the bottom, in the bottom inside corner, has a coupon which allows everyone who receives a copy of the newspaper to send back a registration slip that then gives them entitlement to access to a whole lot of services that they've never ever seen before. And one of the most important things is access to email. Access to also something like Facebook, which is a profile, and then 2 new services we're offering, which is we thought let's go for it. We're setting up a vault service where people can have their any documents, transcripts, photos, or whatever it is. Quite often you lose them when you're in jail or when you're arrested. You can end up with all this material and then no way of moving it from jail to jail or wherever it's going to be. We will now accept on our safe server, which is depended on our major telecommunications company supports it. We will put a space where people can securely hold their documents. Scans of their documents will remain there for as long as they want. We're not going to charge for it. We think it's a sort of service that the prisoner community can offer. We already have enough space on the service, so that we have the vault service. And on top of that other service, we'll have information services where people can ask us questions about what education is available, what's available in their particular area. And we have now a library of information which we can then send out to people. If it's in Victoria or Northern Territory or Tasmania, we have information about what is available, how you would go about doing it, and all that sort of stuff which we can print out and send in to people. So
now, when you say a transcription service, so who would be in charge of that?
Well, the scan of it will happen probably commercially. So we'll have a commercial printer do it for us. So people will send to us, the transcript will be picked up then by our printer, who will then scan it and then put it into the secure server space that the person will have allocated. Now, we'll work out how big it's going to be. It might be a gigabyte, it might be a couple of gigabytes, depending on how people use it, and we'll work out what we need. But the intention is that there will be a secure space where people can save their documents or their photos or whatever it is in the way that anybody outside can save it. Well, that will be available for people inside the prisons and hospitals when they want us to print it out or send it somewhere or whatever. We will do that for them.
And so you're talking there about Justice Action, right?
We are, yes. Justice Action. Well, Justice Action will do it through iExpress. iExpress is the website and the email service that we've maintained since 2013. Right? Everyone agrees it's the first in the world. Running since 2013, we have hundreds of people at the moment who are using the email services, where we just they receive emails the same as anyone else does, and we just then print out the emails and send them as groups into each of the jails. So today we had about, probably 20 people in Lithgow prison here in New South Wales ask for a registration to iExpress services. Everyone will get their own email address and then can have their own profile up if they want to use it. They don't have to put a profile up, but they have access to email services and then avoid all the costs that mail is all the time, and some people don't even send letters anymore from on the outside. So they'll have access to email services the same way as other people do.
That's fantastic. And did you have to lobby the government for that, Brett, or how did that happen?
Well, look, part of the strength of this is that we don't need the government to do it, which is really important. Because we found if you ask government to do things, they often say, they say no almost like it's a reflex action. Yeah. So what we did, the newspaper itself has gone to everyone. It's only gone in because it carries the statements from political parties which are expressed to people, the citizens inside the jails. And that's a constitutional entitlement. So that letter, like the newspaper called Just Us, has a constitutional entitlement into the prisons. And we've been to the Supreme Court 3 times to battle for the right of that newspaper to enter, and we've won it. So in Victoria, for example, at the last federal election, they went, I don't know whether we'll let this in. And we had the Human Rights Law Centre beside us and said, if you don't let it in, we'll go to the Supreme Court, as we did in New South Wales and won. And they said, okay, we'll let it in. And they'll let it in again this time. We know it's gone in because we know people inside the high security units have been talking to us. People in other jails have been sending us letters. So we know it's gone into the whole system in Victoria and Queensland and New South Wales and Tasmania and Northern Territory. No, Northern Territory said no so far. So we have to deal with that yet. So it's, some areas have been more accepting than others. Western Australia said yes. So that's gone in. And then really interestingly has been the mental health space, because the mental health space is even more difficult. And so we had to negotiate with each of the area services. Say in Victoria, there are 13 local health districts in Victoria. Each one we had to do with separately to get the newspaper in. And so we're just continuing to roll that out now to make sure that people are engaged in the democratic process. And we have enough money. We run our own business. We have enough money to be able to do this and support it ourselves at the moment. And then later we'll charge something. At the moment we're talking about maybe $1 a week, something like that, $1 a week to maintain the service. And we at the moment it doesn't matter. We've got enough money to do it. Later we'll make sure that it can recover the costs.
So basically, so you mean recover the costs from whom?
Ideally, what we're looking for is recover the cost from the service providers.
Oh, I see.
Because you see, the education services, there's a whole lot of services there. Those services, they want to ensure that their services are being used. So if we can get advertising from those service providers, that will provide the basis for financing it. At the moment, we're paying for it. We'll find a way of recovering it, and even if, as we're considering now, even if we were to bypass Australia Post and pick up letters from the prisons, instead of paying $1 or $1.20 each letter, we can actually pick it up for nothing from the jail, and then we can recover. That's more money we're saving for the prisoners. So that's
absolutely
that's what it's all about.
So basically, what you're saying, Brett, is that there's 2 parts to this. So there's the fact that you're putting the newspapers into the prisons, but there's also the transcription service where prisoners might want to have photos transcribed or legal documents perhaps, or, stuff like that?
Well, it's not quite simple as that. The first is there's the newspaper which goes in, and it talks about what the services are. So the newspaper has gone into every prison in Australia. That newspaper's gone in. Yeah. It's called Just Us. In Victoria, we know for sure it's gone fully. New South Wales, Queensland, Tasmania, and Western Australia have gone completely, and the ACT completely. So we know that's gone in, the first thing. But what it does, amongst other things, in the newspaper it has a coupon in the bottom left-hand corner, which people are tearing off and sending back to us. Then they register in that, they register for the services. Now, there are 4 services we're offering. 4. The first one is email. They'll have their own email address. Same as everybody else. And people can then send things on the email address. All they have to do is send us a letter. We scan the letter and email to wherever it's going. So it means you can email to 3 or 4 people, it doesn't matter. You see, so that's it. And anybody sends emails back to us, we print out that email and put it in the post to them. Now, if we've got a lot of people in one jail, it goes in each separate envelope, but inside a box. And the box goes into jail. So it doesn't cost us mail, or we just print it out. So bypass a lot of the costs there, and that's one way. That's one thing for email. Then there's the profile. Now, profile's like Facebook. Then people can say who they are, but as they want to be seen, not like as this scumbag we did. Hang on, I don't see myself as that at all. I'm a poet. I'm a painter. I'm a father. I do poetry. I do whatever I want to do. You say who you want to be, as you are. But you can't attack people. It's got to be a positive statement. You can't attack victims and no, I can't do that. So that's the profile. A positive community building exercise, we say. Number 2, the third thing is the vault service, which allows people to save things on the server. So they have something which can be remained all the time. So people are currently losing letters, losing transcripts, losing photos. There's no safe place because you've moved from jail to jail or you've lost everything outside. We will retain it on this vault service, guaranteed to be retained, held by a major telecommunications company, all safe and backed up and whatever. We're not going to charge for it. Let's get it going. And we'll worry about later about the payment. And then the fourth thing is we're doing an information services. You can ask us questions. Okay, so how am I going to do education? How am I going to do this? We've got all this information. We've prepared as a library of information, which we'll print out and send to people. So there are 4 levels: email, profile, vault services, safety vault services, and information services. That's the offering. And so as soon as people use it, then we'll drum it up and make it bigger and bigger and better. Okay?
So the inmates obviously need a computer to do that?
No, they don't. They handwrite things to us.
They can write to you?
Yes, handwrite to us. We've changed our PO box.
Fantastic.
You can send us the old PO box, but the new PO box is slightly different. It's PO box 20014. So 214, 20014, World Square, New South Wales 2002. So it's PO box 20014, World Square, New South Wales 2002. And if you just write a note to us and say, I'd like to have information service, I'd like to have whatever, we will send a response back to them. We're sending out responses right now. Hundreds are going out right now because we sent out 50,000 copies of the newspaper. 50,000. So we're all prepared to handle the inquiries and we're waiting.
Fantastic. So the newspapers actually have these services in there about what's available.
That's right. There's a note of the service at the top of the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little coupon which they tear out, and it's called registration for iExpress services or registration for information services. And there it is. And all you do is put your name on it, your MIN number, your address, what is your preferred iExpress email address, and what do you want. What do you want? And you're going to see, if you send that to us, we'll send a letter back to you.
And then, so they have, so with the email address, so that would be via computer for them?
No, because if they want to send an email, all they do is they send a handwritten letter to us.
Oh, okay.
You email this to Jenny at Gmail.
So Justice Action is going to be the party that does it for them. I see what you mean now.
That's right.
I get it.
We scan it and emails.
That's
and then
awesome.
when they receive an email, we print the email out and then send it and post them as a batch. So the idea is that we're getting in front of computers and so on, internet services. We're making sure that people now, already have access to internet services, but we'll do it in a rather clunky way, but it's been working since 2013. We have hundreds of people who have been using it since 2013, and we're now going to expand it to everyone in the prison system. Because the more people involved, the cheaper it will become, the easier it is for us.
Brett, that's amazing. Look, that's just fantastic. I'm surprised that they haven't said no, because, I mean, wouldn't they also be worried about, they'd want to censor things, wouldn't they?
Well, you see, that's the strength of it as well, because everyone, when you send out a letter, the letter still has to go through the censorship of the jail anyway.
Yeah.
So we're not going to let anything go through. I mean, it's not up to us. All we do is we receive the letter that comes in from the prisoner, and we see the email that's come in for the prisoner. So in each one situation, it still has to go through the prison censorship scheme. It doesn't make a difference at all. So it still goes through that. The only thing is that they can then have an email address, which means they are no longer a handwritten letter needing to go through the mail and all that sort of stuff. Now they are scanned and sent by email. So they have their own email address. They can receive their own email, and that's the key to it.
Fantastic.
So yeah. No, so we're very proud, and it was first in the world. It was acknowledged by Huffington Post back then in 2013. It's been very significant, and we've been very protective of it. We're very pleased now that right across, certainly through Victoria, but all through the jails in the major jails I mentioned earlier, they have all received the newspaper, and we're having a wash of letters coming from people asking to receive the services which we are currently with a team rolling on now.
That's great that you explain the newspaper, though, because the newspaper really is all prisoner-related.
Absolutely. No, it is prison-related. It's called The Voice of People in Prisons and Hospitals. And it's actually on the Justice Action website. So anybody who wants to go up on the JA website outside, families or anyone can see on the website the newspaper itself, and you can see the coupon on the bottom left-hand corner, which people are sending back to us. And we're getting it back. We're getting back letters with inside the letters 25 coupons are sitting inside the letters.
Fantastic.
So it's very good. We're very pleased.
Now, on a different topic, Brett, and thank you so much for explaining all that. It is Reconciliation Week this week. Can you just quickly comment on that?
Look, absolutely. I mean, the most fundamental thing of all, of course, is the Aboriginal representation inside the prisons. It's just everybody these days is embarrassed about what has happened to the Aboriginal people and the way they have been dumped inside the prison system. Now, they're catching the butt of it. Like, we have 14 times the rate of imprisonment for Aboriginal people than non-Aboriginal people. Now, that everybody goes, that's shocking. We're right now involved in the David Dungay inquest, which is Aboriginal death in custody here in New South Wales. And we're totally aware that in other states and territories, the same sort of behaviour is happening all the time. So in this Reconciliation Week, what we really must do is we must highlight how the Aboriginal people and Indigenous people have been affected by imprisonment. How so much money is spent against them and nothing for them. And how the principles of command of your own space and sovereignty of your lives and control of your culture have been desecrated in this whole process. So reconciliation, of course, it's fundamental. I think everyone is now accepting that something has to be done. I see even Scott Morrison has adopted some of the words of the Indigenous people. I think there's a lot more work to be done for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, the coalition government has certainly watered down a lot of those policies. But anyway, look, Brett, thank you so much for coming onto the program. It was a pleasure to have you, and it's so good that we were able to put this all on air.
Marisa, lovely to speak with you guys. Thanks for all the effort from you guys in 3CR.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. And that was Brett Collins from Justice Action speaking about prison-related newspapers and lots of services that have been going on for prisoners and people in mental health facilities. Justice Action has certainly been working very hard. And you're back with the Doin' Time show, and I wanted to actually play that song in honour of Reconciliation Week by Archie Roach, and it's called I Lied. Not sure if I actually believe in reconciliation. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but I am saying that really the election results have not been conducive to Aboriginal people at this stage, as the coalition government has watered down a lot of policies. So let's see how we go. Reconciliation, treaty, sovereignty, that's what we need. It's approximately 4:22, and we're going to be speaking shortly with Ian from the Refugee Action Coalition in New South Wales. And I'm hoping to speak to Ian about refugees and asylum seekers so he can give us an update about what's been going on, and perhaps also look at the increase of suicides on Manus Island and indeed on all the detention centres, particularly Manus. And I wanted to speak with him also about how he thinks, or how the coalition thinks, that the election results are going to reflect the plight of asylum seekers and refugees. What solutions can we have? What policies can we engender here? Hello, Ian. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi, Marisa.
Great to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
And were you able to get access to that introduction, Ian? Were you on hold there?
I was indeed. Yep.
Lovely. Now, do you want to just start off by talking about that, about what's been happening?
Well, there is. We talk about a crisis all the time, but there is a very urgent situation that has developed on Manus since the election. It's difficult to put a precise number, but but we're probably looking at perhaps up to even 17 serious attempts at suicide and self-harm. They're really happening at 2 or 3 a day at the moment, and it's extremely distressing for the people involved. It's distressing for anybody who's in the compounds, who's just aware. Like, it's just the rather than plateauing out, if you like, it seems to be escalating, and that each self-harm is encouraging others, or others are increasing numbers. It's not quite as bad on Nauru, but there is a very similar situation. I think people had big expectations. A lot was invested in the election. Labor had given certain undertakings that 150 people they would accept New Zealand, which would mean 150 people would be going to New Zealand. Shorten had said that they would get everybody off Manus and Nauru, although they're not clear where they were going. They certainly weren't saying they would bring them to Australia, but they did say that they would be a priority to get them off the island. So understandably there were expectations associated with the election, and in the aftermath, I suppose if people had a shred of hope, that shred's gone. So it is a very urgent situation on Manus and Nauru.
And what's the government doing about it? It doesn't seem to be very much in the media, does it?
No, there's been very little. Obviously the media is mostly concerned about the more comings and goings about Canberra, and who's the cabinet minister, who's going to become the unopposed Labor leader, etc., who's going to be the deputy. But of course, that overshadowed all those things is what those things might mean for offshore detention, and you've got both parties remain committed to offshore detention. We'll certainly be doing everything we can to push Labor to maintain at the very least its commitment to the Medivac bill, to getting everybody off Manus and Nauru, to be in favour of the medical transfers, to push the government to accept the 150 to New Zealand. But more than that, obviously we need an end of offshore detention, and we want everyone who's on Manus and Nauru to be brought to Australia.
Ian, it's a very difficult situation because there aren't really enough stories in the mainstream media about what's happening with the self-harm and the suicide. It's only when there's extreme violence that it's reported. And I'm wondering if you could just tell listeners, because obviously the Doing Time show is about looking at helping people that have been deprived of a voice. And I'm wondering if you could just tell listeners what actually causes the self-harm and suicide. I know it's a really obvious question, but I think that we do need to talk to listeners about that.
No, well, sure. It is obviously when you think about it, the people now, it's almost 6 years that they've been held on Manus and Nauru. There is no outcome, no foreseeable outcome. People haven't seen their families, they haven't seen their kids. They've got no personal security. They've got no certainty about their future lives. You've got people who wanted to study, wanted to become veterinarians, wanted to go to university, wanted to have lives where they could get their families, safely somewhere. They've been deprived of all those things. It's said very often, but, unlike a prison sentence, when they know that each day that you're in detention, comes, it's one day closer to getting out. But that's not the case for the people who are on, Manus and Nauru. And when they see the number of medical transfers, there's around 970 people now are actually in Australia from Manus and Nauru, on the basis of medical transfers. They see their own deteriorating situation where there is no help. The medical facilities essentially non-existent on Manus, and they're rudimentary, on Nauru. There's no, and in any case, it's not medical treatment people need. You can't get, psychiatric treatment for the being imprisoned, and it's freedom, that they need, not more medical treatment, and that is what happens. You get people who, attempt suicide on Lorengau. Some of them are so serious that they are transferred from Lorengau on Manus Island to Port Moresby, but there's no treatment in Port Moresby. If the best situation is they end up in a closed ward, in PIH. It looks a lot like Manus, a closed ward in the Pacific International Hospital. If they are put into Granville Motel, they can't go out. They're not safe to go out. People are assaulted. There are guards everywhere. The guards can come and go in their rooms. They're able to be locked into their rooms, but the guards can come in any time. I could go on, but it's that lack of certainty, that lack of security, and it just is. They looked at the election result and they think they've got at least 3 years stretching ahead of them, and that's too much for quite a few of them.
So, okay, let's. I know we've got to cut this short very soon because I think you've got somewhere to go to. But in terms of the election results, what's the coalition stand on that?
They've said the most immediate thing they've said is they want to repeal the Medivac bill. Now, whether they've got the numbers in the Senate to do that, the figures are not, all the results are not quite in. But I think the fact that it was their announced intention that they want to, repeal the Medivac bill.
Who wants to do that?
The coalition, Ms. Morrison.
The coalition wants to appeal the Medivac bill?
Repeal. Yes.
Repeal?
Yes. Yep, they intend to repeal the Medivac bill.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
No, they've made that very, very public. In the one of the things they announced during the election was that they were going to close Christmas Island by the 1st of July. That they very publicly, reopened at the start of their election campaign as a bit of a scare factor. But they're going to close Christmas Island by the 1st of July on the basis of actually repealing the Medivac bill. So that's certainly something that we'll be opposing. There's already a protest. There'd been a protest in Melbourne, last Friday just gone, which was very good. Sydney's got a protest this coming, Friday, where we'll be highlighting the Biloela family deportation and highlighting the Medivac bill and the situation on Manus. But I think that's what people see. I think we will try to push for the medical transfers, but now the push is very much against, the same government that resisted, the kids off Nauru, that resisted the Medivac bill, that resisted the medical transfers, when they were started to happen. That's the government that's appealing, federal court decisions that have, ordered medical transfers, from Nauru. So I think our expectation is, and certainly from people who are in offshore, is that you've got a government that is going to double down, I think, is a commonly used phrase, these times, to maintain, the very harsh regime on Manus and Nauru, and resist the possibilities of people, getting to safety.
Okay, that's really interesting. I knew about the Manus Island, that they wanted to close down the island in July, but I missed the bit about repealing the bill. Now, I'll have to have a look at that more closely. But Ian, I'm so glad you talked about that. But I'm wondering, where are these people going to go now? Where are they going to put them?
Well, there is nowhere for them to go.
Where are they going to go?
There just is nowhere. I think the government is just hoping that they will, disappear slowly.
Oh my God.
They've kind of tried to wash their hands. Well, we've got no responsibility about Nauru, got no responsibility about Manus. They've distanced themselves now. The service providers, as they're called, on Nauru are all Nauruan companies now, not Australian companies, although they're still,
correct,
contracted by Australia, but. And similarly on Manus. So they've tried to distance themselves from that outcome. But the facts remain just the same. PNG can't and won't resettle. Nauru has said they'll issue 20-year visas, but they are not going to allow, sort of permanent settlement, on Nauru either. So the government's got there is no plan. There's no ability to actually resettle and provide, security for these people. There'll be a handful more people. When I say a handful, there may be up to 100 people who may go from Manus to America under the deal. There'll be some more people who will go from Nauru. It's almost finished on Nauru, but maybe there's another, who knows, maybe 30 people, 40 people maybe, will go. Maybe the overall figure from Manus and Nauru to get to the US will be closer to 600 or maybe even 650, but it's a long way short of the 1250 that they talked about when they talked about the US deal, and 1250 wasn't going to get every refugee, safely to the US. 650 certainly is, 600 shorter, so there'll still be 1,000 people, who, aren't going to get to the US. So there really is no alternative. I mean, the campaign, it's one of the good things, if you like, about the campaign is that it was very clear going into the election that regardless of the outcome of the election, that there was still a very strident need for a refugee movement. Even if Labor had been elected, we still would have had to fight, to get them to close Manus and Nauru and to bring, all the refugees and asylum seekers to Australia. So the movement is still on the front foot. We may have to step up the campaign, but that's what these protests are all about. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane have got rallies on the 19th and 20th of July. That's already, in progress. That'll mark the 6th anniversary of the Pacific Solution that was brought in by the Labor government in 2013. So, the movement's on the front foot. There's, plenty of other, issues, but very important that we do keep on the front foot, and now it's important to keep the pressure on the Morrison government, but also to keep the pressure on, the Labor Party.
Absolutely. And, just one final thing about the possible repealing of that bill. I hope it doesn't happen.
No. Well, we'll see about the numbers, in the Senate. But obviously there's a lot of people, supported the Medivac bill. A lot of people in the community saw that as, a chink of hope, out of the refugee campaign. Very encouraged by the fact that Labor, actually supported it. So
Indeed.
We'll be redoubling our efforts, talking to the unions, talking to everyone. The Labor Party has already said that they will not collaborate with the government to repeal, and so we'll need to make sure that if there is an attempt, that there is by the government to repeal, there is as much publicity and community opposition that we can build to fight that.
Absolutely, Ian. It's a form of special cruelty and violations of human rights.
I mean, it is astounding that you've got a government that could actually, even when it knows, the medical circumstances, that in very often themselves, I mean, there's still transfers that are made because the government itself recognises that people can't get, the treatment, but people have to be so ill, so desperately ill, before, the government will actually transfer, people in those circumstances. But, to think that they would stand in the way, of doctors' recommendations for people to get, medical treatment. But I think that does say everything about the Morrison government. It's why so many people were, opposed to them in the run-up to the election and disappointed that we've still got them.
ScoMo, eat your heart out. Why don't you go and spend some time on Manus, mate? There's a very good reason that he's not there. He's a big, talks about being a family man, but family man. He's subjected the kind of desperate circumstances that are inflicted, on people on Manus and Nauru, beyond belief. Some of the people who have the, acute, episodes of attempted suicide on Manus Island have ended up on the floor of police cells, because there is nowhere for people to be treated, properly with any kind of, care and concern. And, I think that's a picture of what the, Morrison government is, is capable of. Absolutely. And, it is Reconciliation Week this week, with Aboriginal and Indigenous people as well. And it's just a national disgrace.
Yes, well, the police cells mean a lot to the Indigenous people in this country for very similar reasons. I think it's why there has been a common struggle and a common recognition of a system that deprives Aboriginal people of their rights and deprives refugees of their rights.
Ian, thank you so much for coming onto the program, and I really wanted to have you on. I had Chris Breen on last week for the Refugee Action Collective, but I felt that it was really important to do a follow-up with you because I really wanted to speak about asylum seekers and refugees in detail and do a two-part broadcast to really highlight these issues, because although ABC and, the media is talking about it, it's not enough.
No, the more the merrier, and the more community reach there is, the more that we can, build a campaign that will take the fight to Morrison and let the people on Manus and Nauru know that in spite of the election, result, there's a movement that's going to keep campaigning until we end offshore detention.
Bring them here.
Yep. Good on you. Thanks, Marisa.
Thanks, Ian. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Ian from the Refugee Action Coalition, New South Wales. Speaking about refugees and asylum seekers and looking at some of the crazy policies that the coalition government has in regards to the plight of these people.
The 3CR Radiothon is fast approaching.
And this year, we're asking you to power Radical Radio.
That's right. It's with your support that we're able to be independent, community-controlled and focused on people rather than profits.
Your support during Radiothon powers the station to give voice to hundreds of people and issues for another year.
And remember, any amount you can afford makes a big difference, and all donations over $2 are tax deductible.
3CR Radiothon 2019,
June the 3rd to the 16th.
Power Radical Radio.
In 2019, 3CR has the power. Add your support during the annual Radiothon to Power Radical Radio. Radiothon starts 3rd of June. To donate, call 039419 8377 or donate online at 3cr.org.au. 3CR Radiothon 2019. Power Radical Radio.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. And yeah, I just played some announcements to do with Radiothon, and please start looking at pledging and donating to all shows at 3CR. We really need your support. And also just doing a little bit of an initial promo, if you like. As I said, it starts next week, and I believe the non-English speaking, the ethnic programs will start first. leading up to the radiothon with the other shows. We are having our Doing Time show on the 11th of June, which is the Monday, 4 to 5, and our target is $850. So if people could start really looking at that, that would be wonderful. It's approximately 4:42, and I'm going to be playing you a song now by Kev Carmody, and it's called Urology.
In December 2017, Tanya Day, proud Yorta Yorta woman and much-loved member of the Aboriginal community, was travelling by train to Melbourne. When V-Line staff found her asleep, they called Castlemaine Police and she was removed from the train and charged with public drunkenness. Tanya died 17 days later as a result of head injuries sustained while in custody. This would never have happened had the recommendations of the 2001 Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody been implemented. Tanya Day's family is calling for the crime of public drunkenness to be abolished and for the implementation of genuine community health alternatives to incarceration. Please add your support by signing the petition at 3CR Reception, 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy, or online by entering Tanya Day Petition into your browser.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and you just heard an announcement about Tanya Day. I thought I'd take the time, actually, for the next couple of minutes to just quickly read out part of a media release. It's a very old media release, but I think I really like it. I know that the inquest has now been transferred to the Human Rights Law Centre, but this particular media release was written by the Aboriginal Legal Service in Victoria, and in December when she first died, I believe. And I think it's a really pertinent media release, and it's time for action to end deaths in custody. The Victorian government needs to act to prevent Aboriginal deaths in custody by abolishing the offence of public drunkenness, says the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service. In an extraordinary statement at a directions hearing into the death of Auntie Tanya Day, the Victorian coroner, Caitlin English, said she would recommend that public drunkenness be abolished in this state, in line with recommendations of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody made almost 30 years ago. And I just wanted to read that out, just to reiterate that it is really important to call on the Attorney General and Premier Daniel Andrews to help to heed the lead of the coroner and commit to working with the Victorian Aboriginal community to prevent further deaths in custody. And it's time to act to abolish the offence of public drunkenness and properly fund sobering up and community health alternatives to incarceration. Aboriginal people have waited too long to be treated with dignity and respect by the justice system in this state. And the Day family have lost their mother, grandmother, sister and auntie, and the Aboriginal community has lost a much-loved and respected advocate. Now, this was written quite a few years ago, but I wanted to really highlight it because of the fact that it's true, that there are very, very few services for Aboriginal people, and indeed very few services for anybody really in regards to sobering up and in regards to being able to have somewhere to go. This particular incident could have been avoided, and Auntie Tanya would have been alive today if she had been looked after instead of being thrown into a cell. So, yeah, I mean, we can't even get public transport now without the cops arresting people and not doing anything to help people. So there really is a duty of care here. It's approximately 4:51 and we're nearing the end of our show. Thank you very much to Brett Collins and Ian for contributing to the show today, and also just to remind listeners yet again that it is Reconciliation Week. Try to attend some of the events, or if not, think about some of the things that have happened to Aboriginal people over the years, and read a book or, get in touch with some of the information about the major massacres that have happened over many years. I know it's not happy reading, but we can't avoid those topics. And, yeah, it's really important. In fact, I think I'm going to play you an announcement now, and I'm hoping that this is going to help to educate a bit.
In 2019,
This is our country.
We've never forgotten where we've come from.
For who we are.
We keep our culture strong.
Now it's time to come together.
Talk as equals.
And write our own future.
This is our country, and this is our time. Treaty, it's time. Enroll now for the First People's Assembly of Victoria election.
Authorised by the Victorian Treaty Advancement Commission, Melbourne.
Precisely, and you're back with the Doing Time show. It's approximately 4:52.
Hi, my name is Lex Wharton and I listen to 3CR and I hope you do too. I hope that you could support 3CR in its radiothon because 3CR supports the fight for communities and support in all areas of struggles. So please listen to 3CR.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and it's approximately 4:53. So I'll just put on another announcement.
The 3CR Radiothon is fast approaching.
And this year, we're asking you to power radical radio.
That's right. It's with your support that we're able to be independent, community controlled and focused on people rather than profits.
Your support during Radiothon powers the station to give voice to hundreds of people and issues for another year.
And remember, any amount you can afford makes a big difference, and all donations over $2 are tax deductible.
3CR Radiothon 2019,
June the 3rd to the 16th.
Power Radical Radio.
We know you love our 3CR Radical Radio t-shirts, and so do we.
They're 100% cotton and Australian made, and you can get one for just $30. They come in black, dark grey and a cool light grey.
To nab one of these beauties, drop into the station at 21 Smith Street or order by phoning 9419-8377. Or you can visit us online at 3cr.org.au/shop. Come on, you know you want one.
In December 2017, Tanya Day, proud Yorta Yorta woman and much-loved member of the Aboriginal community, was travelling by train to Melbourne. When V-Line staff found her asleep, they called Castlemaine Police and she was removed from the train and charged with public drunkenness. Tanya died 17 days later as a result of head injuries sustained while in custody. This would never have happened had the recommendations of the 2001 Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody been implemented. Tanya Day's family is calling for the crime of public drunkenness to be abolished and for the implementation of genuine community health alternatives to incarceration. Please add your support by signing the petition at 3CR Reception, 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy, or online by entering Tanya Day Petition into your browser.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. It's about another minute before I'm out of here. And, yeah, just tune in every Monday from 4 till 5 for the Doing Time show. Thank you once again to our guests for contributing. And just a last reminder that Radiothon is starting next week. In case people have just tuned in, this is the Do and Time Show. Donate to all shows at 3CR, and our particular show is on the, I believe it's the 11th of June, which is on the Monday. And our target is $850. It's approximately 4:56. We've got Beyond Zero coming up next. Stay tuned for the Do and Time Show every Monday from 4 till 5 p.m. And we're going to be going out now with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella, by the Warumpi Band. And take care of each other and stay strong.